So we were walking around Stanley Park, and it was a lovely, lovely day. We came across the Navy, and I said to my friend, let's go in and talk to these guys. So we went in, and one of the officers came up and said, do you guys want to join up? My friend says, no. I said, well, I'm thinking about it. That's good enough. What grade are you? Education do you have? And I said, I just got my senior matric. Well, you'll want a commission then. I said, okay. And I signed the papers, and I went home. My father and mother were sitting just waiting for dinner. My two older brothers were in the Air Force, had signed up in the Air Force. And my dad said, well, what'd you do today? And I said, I joined the Navy. So my mother broke down and ran out of the kitchen. My dad said, you bloody fool, or something like that. And so then I said to him, Dad, what's a commission? My dad being an old sergeant, he says, that's officer training. Well, that's what I signed up for, but I don't know if I'm going to be accepted. So about a month later, I was accepted for an interview. I went down to the wardroom, officer's wardroom. There were big men from Vancouver, rich people that belonged to the Royal Vancouver Yacht Club, other guys like that, and I was the poorer dressed of the bunch. The others were able to drink beer. I didn't approve. And some carried maps under their arm just to show. So we sat down, or at least my name was called, and we went in. There were 3 officers interviewing. And the little fellow in the middle was a commander of Royal Canadian Navy. The other 2 were lesser degrees. One was a school teacher. Anyway, I was interviewed, and the little fellow said, well, what games do you play? And I said, well, I play rugby, and I play football, and I play basketball, and I row for the rowing club. And he was writing all of this down. And finally, we went back out and went home. My parents said, well, how did you do? I said, no, not very good. I was only in there for about 5 minutes. Other guys were in there for 20 minutes, half an hour, carried maps under their arms. I was really out of place. So a month later, I have a letter from them accepting me into the Navy. And so in June, that was June of 1940, 39, I was 19, so that'd be June 40. And I was accepted to go to Royal Roads for officer training. And so I went over there, and here was the little guy. He was the commanding officer. I think he was recruiting for a rugby team, but I'm not too sure of that. But we did have a rugby team. And eventually, after we were called four-month wonders, 90-day wonders, because we got a commission in 90 days. And you fellows have not heard the rest of this story, but I'll tell you too. We went through the 4 months, and on the last day of the semester or whatever it was, the commanding officer took us into his office for lunch. There were probably 4 to 6 people at his luncheon table, and he asked each of us, well, what do you want to do when you graduate? And when it came to me, I said, well, I don't want to. I want to go to sea right away, and I prefer going on loan to the Royal Navy. He said, well, that's interesting, because I have a request in here for 10 officers, and they have to volunteer, and they could not be married. I qualify, I said. So, but one thing that bothers me is that submarines. He says no, and I said, well, put my name down. And that's how I went overseas to the Royal Navy and joined a special force. We worked with commandos, and we were called the Combined Operations, and we went on raids like to Dieppe in North Africa and places like that. And that we were specialists. And that was, then the stories from there get They're too long.
They digress.
Yeah.